Hey up, folks. Have you seen this book? Suicide of a Nation: Immigration, Islam, Identity by Matt Goodwin. You must at least have heard of it. It's been a bestseller since it was first published on the 16th of March. In its first week, it had 10,000 sales, which is pretty damn good for a political tract. It's even better when you consider that none of the usual suspects, Guardian, Times, Telegraph, have seen fit to review Goodwin's book. What reviews did exist in the early days from the political journals, like, for instance, the New Statesman, tended to be hatchet jobs. I sometimes wonder if the people that were writing those hatchet jobs had actually read the book. Moving over to Amazon, the hatchet jobs became obvious. They were written by people who'd never read the book and just wanted to leave a one or two sentence attack on Goodwin, his book, and his readers. That came about, I think, because, let's be honest, Goodwin's gang screwed up the distribution in that first couple of weeks. And people who had ordered the book, those 10,000 people or so, didn't receive it in time. So it left the field wide open for basically the webmongs who wanted to attack Goodwin and provide us with, some amusement. Now that we've all read the book, we've all posted reviews on Amazon, and Amazon has had a look at the hate reviews and has just deleted them all. So, we win, which is nice. Now, what is this book about? The argument is pretty straightforward, namely that the elite, the British elite, is now so utterly decadent that the consensus amongst them is that primitive foreigners, and some of the foreigners who are infesting our country are pretty damn primitive. Those primitive foreigners are preferable to their own people of their own stock in the UK. Now, this policy, which is obviously state policy because we're talking about the elite, is maintained by open borders and a policy of what's now known as two-tier multiculturalism. So British culture, indigenous British culture, is suppressed and native practices are encouraged. All of this is backed by increasing censorship, especially of social media. As it is, at root, says Goodwin, the root of the problem is down to the growth of this, what he calls the new elite. They're guided by an entirely new moral code and an ideology that Goodwin calls suicidal empathy. Now, suicidal empathy, what does he mean by that? Well, as far as I can see, he means that these people extend limitless sympathy to these primitives that they are encouraging to enter our country. And at the same time, offering nothing but contempt for us, the native people of Britain. You can see this in action, tragic though it is to relate. You can see this in action with the Pakistani rape gangs. Families complained about what was happening to their daughters, who were, let's face it, daughters of Britain, in the mill towns, and they were ignored. They were ignored by the councillors, they were ignored by the police, they were ignored by the local press, who all conspired together to keep the situation under wraps for fear that the people they despised, the indigenous people of Britain, if they found out about it, all hell would break loose. So that is something very new in our nation's history. In the past, in the past, the elite and the plebs, they had points of contact, shared interests, and they would meet to, well, share those interests. Let me give you an example. I'm from northwest England, so this is a big one to me. The Waterloo Cup. Waterloo Cup was banned, of course, by the Labour Party, but it was the major hare coursing event in Britain. The finest lurchers went to Lancashire, West Lancashire, where they competed with other lurchers to chase hares. Who went to watch the Waterloo Cup? Because it was never shown on the television. Oh, no, no, no. But many thousands of people went there, and they consisted of the old elite. You would have who are we talking about? The local gentry, the local farmers, the local county townsmen and their wives and their offspring. They would arrive in somewhat battered Bentleys, wearing, I don't know, Barber coats, corduroy trousers, and hunters' Wellington boots. And they would meet up with the people who came from the mill towns, who arrived in hired charabancs with crates of brown ale to prevent dehydration on the journey. And these two groups, uh, the knobs and the yobs, if you like, these two groups, they had things in common, which was watching bunnies being disemboweled by doggies, and they sat around, made comments about the dogs and their expertise, their skills, drank their champagne or their beer, and had a day together. So they were not alien to one another. What was true of the Waterloo Cup, also true probably of horse racing and other events where knobs and yobs meet up and enjoy themselves in each other's company. Um, there aren't many of those events these days, so the new elite, which isn't interested in horse racing, for God's sake, they want to ban that as well. They they don't come in contact with ordinary people. At the moment, we're in the middle of an election campaign here in Scotland. Labour, supposedly the party of the working man. You never see Labour candidates, Labour activists in Muirhouse, Edinburgh, where I live. Oh no, it's far too proletarian for their tastes. They're far too swish. They don't come here, don't want to meet people like me. So even election times when everybody would meet up to discuss the future of their country, even that's changed. So, if there are no such points of contact, it helps you to understand how we could go how we could reach the situation we are in. From the time of Tony Blair entering the Downing Street in 97, 25 years later, when Boris Johnson left Downing Street, something like 16 million, mainly third world foreigners, were allowed to infest our country. It's not about people coming over here on boats. That's the smoke and mirrors. It's about people arriving on aircraft with visas to settle in Britain. And you're going to find that out if you doubt it very soon, because many of them were allowed in by Boris Johnson, and they're all going to get permanent leave to remain because they've reached their time to get permanent leave. How we're going to deal with that problem in the future, I don't know, but you're going to get an awful lot more ethnics in this country permanently settled. Now, obviously, uh, you would think that if one party is allowing an open door policy for ethnic types, another party will seek to get votes by opposing it. But that didn't happen. It was as if all the main parties conspired together to gaslight the people, to tell them that everything was fine. So it didn't matter whether it was Tony Blair or Boris Johnson or anybody in between. They wanted the country to be changed demographically and, let's be honest, ethnically. Now, some people objected to this. So, if the gaslighting didn't work, then the heavy manners had to be used. I can think of one journalist who works for the Telegraph who had a visit from the Plod, who told her that they were going to as register her actions as a non-crime hate incident. What the fuck does that mean? I got no idea. It's an attempt at intimidation. It didn't work with her. She began to post more and more about the police and their actions towards ordinary people. Then you have a case of a 12-year-old girl. 12-year-old girl, for God's sake. What threat can she pose to anybody? Her school decided to have a cultural awareness day. So she turned up in the best traditions of 12-year-old girls who want to be awkward. She turned up wearing a Union Jack dress. Good for her. She's British. The Union Jack is our flag. Oh. But she was sent home for her pains because, oh no, I mean, if she'd turned up wearing a Palestinian headscarf, she'd have been fine. But you can't wear a Union Jack dress because that's racist, you see. Oh, yes. Celebrating your own culture, that's racist. Now, again, I can imagine her outrage and the outrage of her father when she got home. And this ended up as another scandal in some of the newspapers. So, let's be honest. There is one criticism that I want to make here. Because although Goodwin is very good at essentially pointing the finger at the new elite, he's lacking somewhat in pointing the finger at the new elite's stooges. What do I mean by the new elite stooges? Well, the middle class, of course, that shower of scum that people like me despise. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the teaching trade, the social work industry, bovine plods, compliant hacks, uh, council managers, and ancillary rabble. That's who I want to talk about. And Goodwin, I think, should have spoken about these people. He didn't. To my mind, it's a failure of his work. But he does conclude the volume by presenting a plan to recover the country through democratic means. Let's be honest, nobody wants a revolution. We all want a quiet life. However, that is conditional upon people turning out to vote on election day. And the people who are most opposed to this century's changes to their country are also the people who are the least likely to vote. A party that wants to represent people like that is going to have to do a lot more work on the English council estates and the Scottish council schemes to get those people out and get them motivated and then get them out to vote. Suicide of a Nation. It was obviously written to appeal to these people. If it succeeds in helping to increase involvement in the British political process, then it will have achieved its aim. And Matt Goodwin will have earned his place in the pantheon of British writers. Tom Paine springs to mind, whose work has helped to change our country for the better. If you have not read uh, Suicide of a Nation, please do so. It's well worth your money. Think on, folks.